Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Monatui, coach of the Tampa Bay Luxrays, and today I'm bringing you guys our GBA Season 7 Week 6 match versus none other than Chimpact, coach of the Philadelphia Scizors. If you have not done so already, please check out his YouTube link in the description below. He is a phenomenal battler. And after being able to surmount George from last week, I think this battle against Chimp is going to be one of the most difficult of this season. So it's going to be very difficult to win this game. However, we are going to do our best and try and push ourselves to 7-0. And possibly towards an undefeated season, who knows. But for a quick team breakdown, as you can see, he brought his Kieran Black, Thunderous Incarnate, Gligar, Alamamola, Fortress, and Cofagrigus. Now, as soon as I saw this team, I had an idea of what he was going to do with it. He decided to bring his two biggest offensive threats versus my team in Kieran Black and Thunderous Incarnate, two Pokemon that I don't have great switch-ins to, and then he decided to support those two Pokemon with 4 fat and supportive Pokemon. So he's got possibly like Defog on Gligar, he's got possibly Rapid Spin on Fortress, probably just one on one of them. I don't think he'd bring 2 forms of hazard removal. He's got Wish Pass with his Alamamola. That's going to be very difficult if he can Wish Pass into Thunderous, if he can Wish Pass into Cofagrigus, or if he can Wish Pass into Kieran Black. He's got his Cofagrigus there to possibly haze and stop my setup sweeping. I noticed this all from the get-go. I wasn't exactly sure, obviously, of the movesets, but I saw the idea that he had. 2 very big offensive threats versus my team, plus 4 Pokemon to support those 2. It definitely makes sense, even though things like Azu and Volcanion were very big offensive threats versus my team. These 2 were definitely, I think, the most prominent, and the 2 Pokemon that on my roster I didn't have good switch-ins to whatsoever. So, again, I definitely see why he did that. It definitely makes a lot of sense, and it's going to be very difficult for me to deal with. For a quick breakdown of my team, even though I do have an entire team builder dedicated to it, we have our 3 attacks, Toxic, Shed Shell, Jirachi. He didn't bring Dugtrio, so the Shed Shell is going to go to waste, but oh well. We have our Life Orb, 3 attacks, Spikes, Greninja. We have our 2 attacks, Toxic, Spike, Synthesis, Physically Defensive, Roserade. We have our 3 attacks, Toxic, Extra Belt, Buzzwole. We have our Physically Defensive, Mantine, and we have our Dragon Dance, Max Speed, Max Attack, Zygarde. So, looking at his team, Zygarde is going to be just as important as I said it would be in the team builder. I see 3 things that I can definitely set up on, or that I can more than likely set up on, and then possibly the Cofagrigus, depending on the set that it is. Because if it's best move to hit me with Shadow Ball, and it has Will-O-Wisp, I can sub on the Will-O-Wisp and possibly start setting up. Plus, I do have Toxic on my Zygarde as well, so I can whittle that thing down on switch in anyway. But with that being said, let us just get into the game. Now, as you're going to see here, I actually decide to lead with my, actually, what do I lead with? I don't remember what I lead with. That's funny. I believe I'm going to end up, I'm going to lead with my Jirachi. And as you're going to see here, he is going to end up leading with his Aang, which is going to be his Thunder, or no, not his Thunder, it's his Kyurem, as you're going to see here. And this is a very good matchup for me. Obviously, he doesn't want to stay in, because if I'm Scarfed and he's Scarfed, I outspeed him. If he's not Scarfed, I outspeed him. So he's going to want to switch out and go right out into his Thunderous, actually, which is very okay with me, because I clicked Toxic on this turn expecting him to want to switch out, and I'm going to be able to get a Toxic onto this Thunderous and possibly whittle him down turn for turn, which is going to be very, very nice, because once again, this is a very, very big threat to my team, and being able to whittle it down turn for turn, possibly getting rid of it later, putting it in range of my Greninja or my Zygarde, that's going to be very, very useful for later on. So I'm just going to switch out into my Roserade. I don't have great switch-ins to this thing. This thing is kind of meant to deal with it. And as you can see here, he's going to go right for the knockoff in order to get rid of my Black Sludge. And I'm thinking, because he's not Life Orb, I can take any hit that he wants to go for. I can take a Psychic. I can take whatever he wants to do. But I cannot take, as you're going to see here, the Z move that's about to come out. And I'm like, oh, right, Gen 7, this is what people can do. And he's going to unleash the Supersonic Sky Strike, and even though I'm physically defensive, there is absolutely no world in which Roserade lives this attack. As you can see, Thunderous is just going to go up into the sky, and it's just going to end, like, an entire family of Roserades, and we're gonna lose the thing that was kind of meant to deal with that thing, to that thing, so that kind of sucks. He takes a little bit more poison damage, but our Roserade's gone. We're not going to be able to get a Toxic Spikes for the rest of this game, and that kind of sucks, but what we can do is send in our Greninja. Because I assume he's naive, because it's more than likely that he's mixed, I'm going to go for a Dark Pulse here, because it will be able to knock out the Thunderous from where he's at. And as you're going to see here, he is going to send in his Alamamola, and I'm going to score a crit. The crit's not the biggest deal in the world necessarily, however, because I did end up getting the crit, and he's possibly in range of another one, I'm pretty sure he's going to want to go for a Spike here, or he's going to want to go for a Protect here, so I can use this as an opportunity to go for my first layer of Spikes, which is going to be very useful versus his team. Like I said, whittling down that Cofagrigus, whittling down that Fortress, forcing him to go for Spin if he has it. Every time that this Alomomola comes in, it'll be switching in on a Spike. So we're going to get up that layer of Spikes, and then on the following turn, I believe we're just going to fire off another Dark Pulse, because I didn't look like we could kill, but I wanted to get a lot of damage off onto this thing and force it to Wish. As you can see here, he's going to be brought very, very low, and he is going to end up going for that Wish. And I believe on this turn, I actually decide to go for another... No, I don't go for another layer of Spikes. I believe I click Dark Pulse once again, or I pull a double, because I figure this thing's going to either protect or switch out and heal up something else, or go hard into like his Kieran Black, which can take the hit. So I'm going to go right out into my Jirachi. And as you can see here, he does just go for the Protect. It makes sense, he needs this Alomomola to be relatively healthy in order to take on the majority of my team. Basically, like, he needs this Alomomola healthy so he can switch in my Greninja. This is basically what I'm trying to get at. Here, he's going to make another good play. I debated going for the HP Ice, but I really wanted to poison this Alomomola. And as you can see here, he's going to switch into his Gligar, and he's going to reveal the immunity. Now, what this tells me is that his Gligar does not have Defog. You have to run... you can't run Immunity plus Defog on Gligar, which is good information to have. So if he does have Hazard Removal, it's going to be on his Fortress 100%. I debated staying in and clicking HP Ice, but if he was a little bit specially defensive, I wouldn't be able to 2-KO him. And I didn't expect the next couple turns to go exactly how they do. So, as you can see here, I'm going to switch out into my Buzzwole, because I can take an Earthquake, I can take a Knockoff, I can do whatever. And he's going to reveal the Swords Dance. And I was like, oh... that's not exactly something that I expected. And as you can see here, I'm just going to go for the Ice Punch. I'm thinking, okay, well maybe I can 2-KO him. That'll be kind of nice. If he's no item acrobatics for some reason, I'll kill him. But he's then going to pull out the Aerial Ace. And this was actually a roll to kill. It was about a 50-50 roll, and he's going to end up getting it. It's not the biggest deal in the world that he got the roll. That was just very, very good prep on his part in order to bring SD Aerial Ace to deal with my Buzzwole, and I'm going to send Jirachi back in because he's 100% in range of HP Ice at this point. Especially judging by the Ice Punch damage, he's definitely more physically defensive, so I'm just going to go right for that HP Ice, as he's going to go out into his Alomomola in order to take it. And as you can see here, that's going to do like absolutely nothing. Leftovers is probably going to recover him about the same that HP Ice did. And as you can see, we're not in a great spot. We're losing Pokemon relatively quickly, and we have not been able to take anything down on his side. However, we do still have our plan of dealing with this Zygarde. Now, I expect him to pull a double out into something else in order to take the Toxic, either the Thundurus or into his Gligar once again. So I'm going to go out into my Zygarde, and as you can see here, he actually decides to send out his Fortress. And this is something that I can set up a substitute versus, because like I said, no attack investment Gyro Ball will not break my sub as long as I don't have any Dragon Dances up. So I'm going to go for the sub as he ends up going for the Rapid Spin. That is a little bit annoying because I really wanted those spikes up, but there isn't too much I can do about it. I am still behind a sub, which is kind of nice, and I can just start firing off attacks. He does, however, have some switch-ins to the attacks that I want to go for. So on this turn, I'm just going to go for 1,000 arrows. Like I said, I don't want to start Dragon Dancing up because Gyro Ball will be able to break my sub, and he is going to send out his Cofagrigus as I go for the 1,000 arrows, getting a little bit of damage off onto this Pokemon, which is good for me because this does a decent little chunk. And because his best recovery is Pain Split, any damage I can get onto this thing is going to be really, really nice. So what I'm going to be able to do on the following turn is go for a Toxic in order to once again whittle this thing down so that I can eventually sweep with my Zygarde. And this entire game is basically built around me trying to set up with my Zygarde. As you can see here, unfortunately we're going to miss that Toxic as he pulls out the HP Ice on his Cofagrigus. And keep in mind the amount of HP that Cofagrigus is going to be at after this turn, and keep in mind this Toxic miss for later, because it does come into play a little bit later, and you'll see where. So, he's revealed the HP Ice. I'm not boosted, and I missed my Toxic. I'm exposed to another HP Ice, so I'm not going to be able to stay in versus this Cofagrigus, so I'm forced to switch out. And I'm just going to go right out into my Mantine. I'm not exactly sure what he has to possibly hit my Mantine, but I'm pretty sure I can wall it, and I can possibly get a Toxic off on it as well. But as you can see here, he actually instead sends out his Gligar. And he should be in range of a Scald from here, so that's exactly just what I'm going to click. He is going to be forced out, and he's going to go right out into his Alomomola to take on the attack. You know, smart play, water resist, etc. If he gets burnt also by the Scald, I'm not going to be able to poison him, which is a lot better for him. Like, he would much rather be burnt than poisoned, I think. But as you can see here, he's not going to get burnt, and then on the following turn, what I can do is go for a Toxic. just to whittle this thing down once again, because this is also one of the things that can kind of take on my Zygarde, even though depending on his set, I will be able to set up on it. Like, if he's Scald, it doesn't break my sub. If he's Knockoff, it doesn't break my sub. He has to have Ice Beam in order to break my sub. And I don't know if he'd be, like, Wish Protect, Toxic, Ice Beam, because I'm assuming he has something to hit Man-Time, like Toxic or Knockoff. So yeah, but basically this thing's poisoned. It threw up a Wish, and this kind of sucks for me because I know he's going to be able to go right out into his Thundurus in order to pass this Wish, and there's not really too much I can do to stop it. Like, Scald's not going to do enough damage. I do go for the Scald, trying to get as much damage off onto the Thundurus as I can, and it does do a decent chunk, but with that really fat Wish that Alomomola has, he's going to get right back up to full health. And that kind of sucks, because now I'm in a position where I have to try and switch into this Thundurus, which is not something that I can easily do on the entirety of my roster. So as you can see here, I'm going to go into my Zygarde, expecting him to want to go for an electric move. I figured he'd go right for like a Volt Switch or a Thunderbolt or something like that, because in this point in the battle, he has absolutely no reason to predict. Like, there's pretty much nothing I can do to the Thundurus as Man-Time. It's relatively safe. Like, again, he's not losing much just by clicking Thunderbolt or Volt Switch or something along those lines, but he's going to opt to go for the knockoff instead, get rid of my item, which kind of sucks. And now, unfortunately, I am in range of a Hidden Power Ice. He doesn't know my spread yet, so he may not think that I'm in range of HP Ice. Like, if I'm fully specially defensive, I'm not in HP Ice range, especially because he's a Z Crystal and not Life Orb. So I'm going to switch out because I know I die to an HP Ice. He doesn't know that. And I'm just going to hard switch out into my Greninja, expecting the HP Ice. And I end up kind of looking like I made a really cool prediction as I catch the Cofagrigus coming in. That wasn't my intention. I just meant to take an HP Ice and then fire off a Hydro Pump afterwards. But this Cofagrigus is in. I'm just going to fire off a Dark Pulse. He opts to go back out into his Alomomola, which I'm very okay with because this thing is poisoned, meaning that I will be able to whittle this thing down a lot with Dark Pulse plus poison damage, and I should be able to beat this thing 1v1, and in order to not take some Life Orb damage myself, I should be able to just go for some Layers of Spikes here and start, you know, hazard stacking him and punishing him for going for switches. But I'm going to go for another Dark Pulse just to get him relatively low and force him to go for a Wish. As you can see here, I am able to do that. However, he's going to whip out the Wake Up Slap, which is going to just slap me around right in my face and do a decent amount of damage to me, which is kind of unfortunate because I really wanted to, you know, not have my Greninja weakened, which would have been very, very nice, but very good prep on his part once again, hitting my two Dark types on my team. But here, I'm just going to fire off another Dark Pulse. I can get rid of the Alomomola, or I can get damage on whatever wants to come in. As you're going to see, he opts to actually switch in his Kyurem Black, which does take this Dark Pulse relatively well. But it's going to, you know, it's going to do close to 50%, like 45%, something along those lines. And putting him in range of plus 1,000 arrows, at least, which is nice. Or at least putting him in range where a roll relatively in my favor will knock him out. So I'm going to go for another Dark Pulse, and he's actually going to switch into his Fortress now. So he's just switching around and allowing his Pokemon to take damage. And here's going to be kind of a weird play. I fully expect him to go for Rapid Spin here in order to knock me out. However, this Fortress is perfect setup fodder for my Zygarde. I want to be able to set up with my Zygarde on this thing. I can go for 2 Dragon Dances and live 2 Gyro Balls, and then possibly sweep the rest of his team. Even at +1, I have a chance to win this game. So, as you're going to see here, I'm going to set up a Layer of Spikes, expecting I want him to kill me at this point. I don't want to take out this Fortress because this is the best fodder for Zygarde that I have. He's going to get up a Layer of Spikes, which kind of sucks, but like I said, I want him to kill me. And actually, what I'm going to do here, knowing that he's going to go for Rapid Spin, I don't think he would go for anything else, is I'm just going to hard switch into my Zygarde. I don't want him setting up more spikes and allowing me to take more damage, so I'm just going to go right out into my Zygarde. And as you're going to see here, he does end up going for that Rapid Spin. It's not going to be doing a lot of damage to me. And what we will be able to do is start setting up and possibly going for game at this point, depending on what he decides to switch into. So as you can see here, he's going to switch out. He's going to go right out into his Cofagrigus. And this is where I want you guys to remember that poison damage, because it would have come in handy. It would have been very, very useful at this point, because he would have been, I think, 6% lower from where he is at now. And then this, the poison would have negated the leftovers here, which is something to note. And at +1, this 1,000 arrows, as you're going to see here, is going to do a decent amount of damage to this thing. It's going to bring him close to 50%. And then as you're going to see here, he's going to have the Hidden Power Ice. But because of Zygarde's natural massive bulk, we are going to be able to live on 3%. And this is where, if we had gotten that extra bit of poison damage off onto this Cofagrigus, we would have been in a great position, because we would have been able to knock out this Cofagrigus and not sweep the rest of his team, because he did still have his Alomomola. But you have to remember, his Alomomola was very, very low. and even with a regenerator switch in, I would have been able to hit that thing with 1,000 arrows and then possibly knock it out from where it was at. I'm not exactly sure if it would have killed at +1 from where it was at, but he would have possibly had to switch in his Alamomola, switch back out to get regenerator, sack another Pokemon, and that would have been good for me, but unfortunately that's not what's going to end up happening. Like I said, I don't think I could have swept him from there, but I would have been able to get rid of a few Pokemon, which would have been great. Here I don't have really any other Pokemon to go into to kill that Cofagrigus, so I'm going to go right out into my Jirachi as he's going to send out his Alamomola. Ironhead, not really going to do a lot of damage, and he does have leftovers to negate the first turn of poison, so that kind of sucks. But I don't really have a better play other than to just click Ironhead on this Alamomola and try and flinch it. So that's basically what I'm going to go for, as he's going to make the smart play and switch out, get regenerator, not risking me having the ability to knock it out or not risking me flinching it. So he's just going to go out into his Fortress. He's going to take the Ironhead and then he's going to sack it off to the Fire Punch on the following turn. Smart play, Fortress did its job. It rapid spun away my hazards. My Spiker and my T-Spiker are both dead, are both pretty much dead. Greninja dies on switch into Spikes if it hasn't already. So Fortress is going to go down, but he's still in a very good spot because he can now send in his Thundurus. And I need my Jirachi healthy because it's like the only thing that can kind of beat his team at this point if I flinch everything to death. So I'm just going to sack off my Greninja to the Spikes. It's not doing much for the rest of this game, obviously, because I don't have removal, and it switches into hazards and it dies. As he's going to click Volt Switch. So this is also going to be kind of a weird play. Volt Switch was his best play because he got damage off onto me. I'm going to go into my Wakanberry Mantine because I can't allow Jirachi to get weakened. I'm going to take the Volt Switch. As you can see here, I'm actually surprised because I'm fully physically defensive, and it does less than half with the Wakanberry, which I was amazed about. But what I can do here is just kind of click Scald, possibly get some damage off onto it. I'm not sure if, no, I click HP Rock here. HP Rock and Scald do about the same amount of damage. It does, like, the same thing to both of them, and, you know, why not? There's no reason for me not to, really. And at this point, like, there isn't really much I can do to win this game. I'm gonna try to possibly win with my Jirachi. Like, if I weaken his Thundurus, like, if I get rid of his Thundurus somehow, Jirachi can actually win this game, because with Alamomola poisoned, I can possibly flinch that thing to death. It's gonna be very difficult, but if his only attacking move is Wake Up Slap, I should be able to beat that thing 1v1. I outspeed and I knock out the Kyurem, and I outspeed the Gligar and knock that thing out with HP Ice. So there actually is a very, very small chance that I can win this game if I'm able to somehow get rid of his Thundurus. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to be able to do that, but we're going to try. Also, Ironhead knocks out the Cofagrigus from here. Granted, hitting it will get rid of my Serene Grace, but as you can see, here he's going to switch out into his Thundurus. I'm going to Scald. I'm hoping maybe I crit him and somehow kill him, but no, he's going to live. He's going to get the Wish back, and then we're really sad because there's just nothing else we can do at this point. However, Mantine can actually live this Volt Switch, as we saw by the previous Volt Switch damage. So we're going to stay in, and we're just going to go for the Roost. But no, we're going to actually end up getting crit, which probably didn't matter. Like, he probably had this game anyway, or he probably would have been able to beat my Mantine eventually anyway. But, you know, it just sped up the process, so not that big a deal. Now, all he has left is all he has left is, like, 5 other Pokemon. But he's going to send out his Cofagrigus here. I still have my Jirachi. I calc to see if HP Ice would kill. It definitely doesn't. I have to click Ironhead in order to possibly knock this thing out. So that's exactly what I'm going to go for. That's exactly what I'm going to go for. And we are going to be able to knock him out. However, with the Mummy, he is going to get rid of my Serene Grace, meaning that any chance that I had of probably beating the Alamomola is now gone, because he can just Wish Protect and whittle me down with Wake Up Slap. He can Wish back up into his Thundurus. But as you can see here, he's going to send in his Thundurus. It's Jirachi versus the world, and the world is a cruel, cruel place. So he's going to Volt Switch out, put me in range of knockoff so that he can possibly beat me later on. That was the smarter play, because in case I lived the knockoff and then I had something to hit the Thundurus, that would have been good for me and not good for him. But as you can see there, HP is going to go off onto the Alamomola. It's not going to do anything. With the Serene Grace gone, once again, I probably can't flinch this thing to death like I had intended a little bit earlier, but it's not that big a deal. Spoiler alert, we're going to end up losing this game, and we're going to talk about a few reasons as to why we would have lost this, or why we lost this game in a little bit. But as you can see there, Ironhead, I actually do get the flinch, funnily enough, without the Serene Grace. Jirachi still flinching things, despite not having its ridiculous ability. But basically, I'm gonna click HP Ice here, because like the only way I win is if he chokes hard switches into Thunderous and I crit it and it somehow dies. But again, there's not really anything I can do. It's just Jirachi versus the world, and the world's gonna end up taking the victory. Couple things in this game that led to me losing this game. For one, Chimpact perfectly. Like, SD Aerialade's Gligar was not something I really saw coming. I thought maybe he'd have, like, a flying move to hit me, but I didn't think it would kill me, because Buzzwole's ridiculously bulky and Gligar's really weak, and Aerialade is a weak move. Like, I know it's 4 times effective, but he actually had a little bit of attack investment that confirmed that he would be able to knock me out from the spread that I was at, even though it was still, like, a 50-50 roll. He did end up getting it, and it's not, like, that big of... It's not really hacks. It was a coin flip, basically, and he was able to get it. And even if he didn't knock me out, my Buzzwole didn't have recovery, and it would have been able... He possibly would have been able to switch into his Alamomola. I wouldn't have been able to switch into Spikes. Also, Z-Fly on Thunderous, going for that turn 2, being able to get rid of my Roserade was really, really good for him, as... Roserade was still very useful in that game. It punished, like, if I still had my Roserade, I could have HP fired the Fortress, pop his Akaberry, as we saw he had earlier on, do a lot of damage to him. It could have set up T-Spikes versus the Alamomola, could have set up T-Spikes versus the Cofagrigus, it could have set him up versus the Gligar, even though he did actually beat me 1v1 because of the set that he was. So very good prep with that Thunderous there, being able to deal with my Roserade. The Toxic Mist did definitely suck. I think with the extra poison damage on the few turns that he would have had it, I think I would have been able to knock him out with the next 1,000 arrows. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure. But even then, there was a very good chance that I wasn't winning that game anyway if that had happened, because Kyurem actually had a chance to live that 1,000 arrows, funnily enough. Even though I was at +1, Kyurem's extremely naturally bulky. I think it was a roll in my favor, but it still did have a chance. And like I said, he did have his Alamomola, and if it didn't live the first 1,000 arrows, like, if he was in range of 1,000 arrows at the amount of HP he was at, all he had to do was switch out and, like, sack his Gligar or his Fortress or something along those lines, and then switch back into his Alamomola and get enough Regenerator. And at the point where I was at like 3 HP, Wake Up Slab would have been able to knock me out, so, yeah, I don't think that would have won me the game, but it definitely would have brought me a little bit closer, and maybe put me in a better position to possibly win. I definitely think I made a couple mistakes during prep. I didn't offensively check the Thunderous well enough. Like, I had Greninja to check it offensively. I had Zygarde at +1 that could have dealt with it offensively. But when you look at my team, especially like a Z-Fly Thunderous, once he got rid of my kind of switch into it, being my Roserade, which ended up not being a switch in at all, he was just able to plow through my team and with his Thunderous and just not be super great for me. But that's okay. This is our first loss of the season. It is a 4-0 loss, relatively big, but that's okay. We're going to learn from it, and we're going to move on. Next week, we have Dan, aka Drive, and we are going to look to get back on our winning streak, hopefully push ourselves to 6-1, and hopefully push ourselves to a guaranteed playoff spot. But regardless, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, check out Chimpact in the description below if you have not done so already, and I will see you in the next game.